Hello. Today's guest is Olympic silver medalist and former England seven-star Marcus Watson. In this episode, we talk about what life was really like in the Olympic Village, the toughest players Marcus has ever played against, and the common thread that all of Marcus's best coaches had and the worst ones didn't. I really hope you get something useful from this chat. I really enjoyed it. And this is actually episode 13 of Ross Examination. And after this, we're going to take a little bit of a break before we come back in the middle of summer with some exciting stuff. So, as always, really appreciate you listening and enjoy. Marcus Watson, professional rugby player, Olympian, son, father, brother, and now oil magnate.
Correct. Well, yeah.
Many hats. Many hats. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for coming on Ross Examination as well. What is this? This is the 10th or 11th one I've done now. I think only 4 have gone out.
Yeah.
But actually, I started doing a few shorts and trialing them on TikTok and YouTube and putting them out there. But I got my first troll the other day. Yeah, I did.
What happened? What do they say?
So all the ones I've been putting up have all been kind of performance-based.
Yeah.
Quite on brand. And I thought, you know what? I'll put a funny one out. I'll be a bit quirky. I put a funnier one out that's not as performance-based. And someone commented, they need to make podcast equipment way more expensive.
Oh, was it a real person? Or was it like, oh, it was?
And I was like, if you're going to troll me, can you at least not be funny?
Yeah.
Because it's... I was like, if people start liking it, I'm deleting it.
Brutal. Brutal. You got all that coming.
It was funny. But I'm staying on brand from now on. Scared of it. It hurts me too much.
He's put you back in place, has he?
We do. How are you doing, though?
Yeah, very well, thanks, mate. Had a pretty manic, 7 or 8 months or so. But things are finally starting to settle, so that's nice.
Yes, you're retired now. All 3 Watsons.
Correct.
No longer playing. I've had the pleasure of playing with 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're all finished. How's that feel?
Yeah, it's a bit strange, actually. So Callum, my youngest brother, finished, in May? He was playing for Barnes, I think, at the time. I finished in July after being in Italy for 2 years. And then, obviously, most people probably know Anthony, and he's retired through injury, which he's known for a little while, but it's kind of come out, or he's officially retired last week.
How long has he known?
He's probably had a bit of an idea for a while. I think he's really known probably for a month and a half, 2 months. I think since his last game, because he was saying to me the other day, it was on their way to play Sale, and obviously it's a longish bus journey from Leicester to Sale or to Manchester, and he couldn't sit down the whole trip. He was lying down, in the middle of the corridors in there, so pre-game, and he's lying down in the middle because he can't even sit. I think that was probably a bit of a realisation for him when he's like, yeah.
This can't go on.
Yeah, exactly. And then afterwards, he's struggling to sleep at night, all that sort of stuff, so.
Yeah. And just for people's context, they're wondering why I said oil magnate. Now you've gone into the family business, which is something to do with oil.
Yeah, well, it's like production chemistry. So yeah, some pretty very niche stuff of my brother would know a little bit more than me because I'm now doing there's 2 sides of it. I'm doing the procurement side at the moment, and then going to get into the chemistry side of things. So got a lot of learning to do.
Anthony can get involved as well.
He is thinking about it. He might just take on a project or 2 rather than be in full time. I think he also wants to just see what else is out there.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it, when you retire? And I just want to get straight into it with, so injuries aside, to what percentage do you think you fulfilled your potential?
This question for me, right, I'll start off and I'll answer it. I reckon at my best, I reckon like 85%.
Really?
On average, I'd say probably about 65%.
Really?
So what I mean by that is there was times I had like maybe 2 seasons, I can think, 3 seasons where I think I was pretty good. And then for those other seasons, I was below where I'd like to be for whatever reason. It's easy to, and I don't want to be that guy that blames a lot of stuff on injuries because people do that all the time. But there's no doubt it hindered me for a certain period of my career. And just so happens the seasons that I played well, I thought were the seasons that my body felt was its best. But I also think even if I was injury-free, I don't know if I ever would have thought that I would have reached my potential, if that makes sense. I just don't think that I ever would have been like, nothing's ever perfect, obviously. So I kind of think that even if I was injury-free, I'd be like, I still probably had another 10, 15% left.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think rugby, especially as a game,
it's one of those things where you can take control of every part of your game.
Yeah.
But there's 29 other people on the pitch.
Yeah,
the way the crowd react, the way the ball bounces, there's so much outside your control. It can be quite frustrating.
Yeah.
I used to say, and again, this is, I want to make sure we focus on you, but I always find I was never worried about playing badly. I was always worried that I just wouldn't do as well as I knew I could.
Yeah.
That was what stressed me more than anything. I was like, because I didn't know, because so much could go wrong. I was like, I don't know.
Well, it's funny. Like you said, there's so many different worries about, there's like selection worry, injury worry, then there's performance worry, and then there's what like your players or coaches think. But you kind of, after a game, the thing that stuck with me towards the end was like, you just have a bit of a feeling. You just kind of know if you've played well. You know if you've played well, or even if you haven't. And sometimes someone might think you've played well, but you don't. And a lot of the time that, for me, was like an effort-based thing, if that makes sense. I always found that interesting towards the end, because at Wasps, mate, there was, I reckon there might have been 5 or 6 performances that I had where afterwards I was like, that was decent. Whereas other times might be like, okay, that was all right. And then there was times where I was like, oh, fuck. I was up at night being like, I should have done this, should have done that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Everyone has that.
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah, it is.
It's I remember a specific game against Leicester away when you scored an absolute scorcher of a try. Is that the sort of game you're talking about?
Yeah, because also that was like a funny one, because that was like contract renewal. I'd been injured for ages before that. I just got back fit. And I think that was kind of a case of like, right, if I get a bit of a run of games, maybe I'll get recontracted, maybe I won't. And it was one of those kind of feelings that afterwards I was like, right, I feel like I played well. And I think I will get a contract somewhere at least, was kind of the thought process. And also we actually did a psychology workshop before, and we had a coach, Lee Blackett, together. We both were coached by Lee. And I can't remember, it might have even been...
Was it my dad?
It might have been your dad. So we had to do, yeah, it must have been. We had to do we had to like send a video to, might have even been your dad or Lee or something, just saying like what that you think's going to happen in that week. And I kind of said, I feel really good. I think I'm going to have a good game. And it's funny because Lee just kind of pulled me aside and was like, what was different? Like, why? Obviously seen a video, and he was like, you said you were going to play well and you did. And it was more of a case of like, I just felt good body-wise, you know?
Yeah. It is interesting because my assessment of whether I had a good game or not was often on big moments, right?
Yeah, okay.
Did I score a big try? Did I make a big hit? And a lot of these things are actually, you can't control.
Yeah.
Like you could make the same break, someone either makes a good tackle or a bad tackle. You don't control their tackle. You only control your, as opposed to, I did everything I needed to do in that game well, therefore I played well. Mine would be, did I do the big thing?
Yeah.
Which was frustrating and makes you frustrated because you can't control it as much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I also think that there's sometimes when you're just like, I've got to just take this on. Like I need a big moment, so I kind of need that big moment to happen. It doesn't always happen like that at all, does it? But I'm the same as you, because I like those are the reasons why I wanted to play rugby. And then I kind of put it back to an effort-based thing. So like chase backs or really boring rugby stuff, but kick chase is so boring. But that was like a big thing. So it's like, did I do that well? A lot of it was defensively, really, or work rate. Someone made a line break, would I be able to get there? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, and when you said you had 3 years where you felt you played at your best, where were you then?
I thought I played, one was at England Sevens, Simon Amor's first year, and then actually there might have been 3 years back to back, and then my 2 at Newcastle.
Yeah.
And a half at Wasps, maybe 2 halves at Wasps, actually.
Okay, but it was consecutive.
Yeah, those 3 were consecutive, and then the halves, I reckon, at Wasps. So overall, maybe 4 seasons combined with half each at Wasps. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, and how many coaches do you have over your career?
Jeez. If we're including academy, I had a guy called Jan Bonney, Irish. Then I had Neil Hatley / Toby Booth, but he was with the first team, which I really was for 2 games maybe. Then Ben Ryan, Simon Amor, Dave Walder / Dean Richards, Di Young, Marco Bortolami. If I missed anyone.
Okay, yeah, that's a good collection there. And who did you feel was the best coach you ever worked with? For you?
Yeah, for me, Simon Amor. For me, a lot of those coaches had good parts about them. Simon covered all of those for me. He had a really good balance of being personable, approachable, also stern at the same time. So like he would, you'd be able to talk to him. You'd feel like you're talking to a bit of a mate, but there was like a line, and he wouldn't let. Not that he wouldn't. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't let you become really close with him because he's your coach, so he needs to be able to say these things. The first meeting I had with him, I'd just had what I thought was a good season. So I come in, and he sat me down and said, "How do you think you went?" And I remember being like, "Oh, okay, nice new coach, had a good season. This meeting's going to go well. Pump my tyres up." And I sat down, and he goes, "I think you can be much better. I don't think you were maybe as good as you are saying," that kind of thing. And I was like, okay. Kind of took me by surprise a little bit because I'd like to think I didn't talk myself up much. So I was like, okay.
Listen, pal.
Yeah, exactly. One of those.
I'm the number one guy here.
Exactly. But he had a good way of doing it. So he kind of said that and was like, look, I think you'd be much better. And he told me some bits, I can't remember specifically what to work on and what I needed to work on. And then he finished it with, but I think you can be one of the best centres or the best centre in the world at sevens at that time. And that was kind of enough for me to be like, okay. At first I was like, geez, this guy thinks I'm shit. We can swear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy thinks I'm shit. And then he finished it with that, and I was like, okay, this guy definitely doesn't think that I'm shit. It's just trying to get more potential out of me. And I just liked his style because also that's the man management side that was really good. I thought he was with me anyway. He was also really good with the tactical side of sevens and the actual coaching. So he encapsulated all of that for me.
So there is actually like a matrix when it comes to this sort of thing, whether it's parenting, coaching, pretty much anything, is this challenge support matrix. And it's like, I've had coaches for sure that love to challenge you all the time. They would drive really high standard. If you meet it, great. If you don't, off you go. Mm-hmm. I've also had coaches that really support and they don't want to create any negative culture. It's all about support.
Yeah.
But players kind of take the piss.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he had that perfect balance of, I'm going to challenge you to really be your best, but I'm also going to help you get there.
Yeah.
And those coaches tend to be in that top quadrant of top people, and you feel he was the best at that.
Yeah, I don't think it's funny because if you talk, I've never heard of that before, but if I think about that graph, I've had more coaches being on the, what side do you say? There was supportive in the other
So
one.
there's high challenge, low support, low challenge, and the ideal is, or you have low support, low challenge, which is called the apathy, where people just don't give a shit. Right. I've had coaches like that with me. Who literally, I'm an academy player in the team, they'd be like, do you want to have a go? I don't either care nor think that you'll go, but
yeah. I think rugby has too much of that
high challenge,
low support. Yeah, has too much of that. Simon had a good balance of that for me.
Yeah. And have there been coaches, like, you don't necessarily need to name them, but do you find there were coaches that made it hard for you to play at the level you wanted to?
Probably, but when those questions are asked straight away, I think it does go back to you an extent. Like, you've got to make it happen. But obviously with rugby, there's selection issues and all kinds of stuff like that. Someone might just not like the way you play. So actually, here's a good example. I don't mind naming names either. Now I've finished. So my last 2 years were in Italy. Fortunately for me, I was finishing my career, so I'd had some experience. So that wasn't the way I knew rugby was going to be. But the head coach called Marco Bortolami there.
I remember it was the second row, right?
Yeah. He is just like, he has to be in control of absolutely everything. Like everything. Yeah. To the point where he was telling not giving pointers, but one of our 10s was kicking. And he's a second row. I don't know if he's ever kicked. And he was like, you need to look at the ball when you're kicking. And I was like, what kind of advice is that? Of course you do. And then, why are you telling our 10 how to kick?
Who's that? Was it Jacob?
Yeah.
It was Jacob.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Wasps reunion, wasn't it? It was like Jacob, Paolo, you, Malachi. Bloody hell.
Matteo.
You went there?
Yeah. So I kind of overheard that and was like, kind of sums him up to an extent. I'm sure if you know him, he's not a terrible bloke or anything, but there are some of these people that just kind of think that you have to be tough to be a good coach or to come across tough. In my view, it's actually more of a sign of weakness, because I think it's really easy to do that, to just ignore people or not be supportive of that kind of thing. I think it's a much easier job to just kind of be like, my way's the right way.
Yeah.
And he was definitely a bit like that. I had other coaches that were a little bit that way inclined, but he would be the most.
Yeah, it is interesting. The saying, when the only tool in your bag is a hammer, you treat everything like a nail. But it is true. Like, I think some coaches think what worked for me, therefore it will work for you, i.e., and I've found a lot of players, there are some players that respond to that sort of, I'll challenge you, see if you rise to it. Every player likes to think they're that player.
Yeah.
Very few are.
Yeah.
It actually damages them more than anything. There are very few players that don't respond well to encouragement, confidence, building. Still challenge, but without that support, you're almost just, it's very short term.
Yeah.
You might get a game out of them, but you're not going to get a career.
It's also one of them where I'm like, does anyone actually really like that? That with if no support at all? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think I know many people who, the problem is, even if someone does like that, if they get an opportunity to go somewhere else where they're going to get less of this shit from the coaches, they're going to take it, which is why it's short term. So you can have people, the reason these coaches do well though is, and it's the same thing with managers in business. So you have settling points of teams that are minimum standards. Now, when you're in high support environments, low challenge, these standards tend to be quite low because no one wants to ruin it. But you bring in some arsehole, they raise the standards super quickly because everyone's terrified of them and they do this. But so they get quick standards. So as an owner, you go, bring in this guy, just raises the standards so quickly. But the problem then is everyone's looking for an out. No one wants to be there anymore. So you might get 1 season or 2 seasons, but then you see these coaches that do that. They tend not to have long sustained periods of success, which is required. So you look at Saracens, you know, one of the most successful teams over a long period. They've had the same coach and they have a very high support environment. You know, the other thing that comes across when you talk about Bortolami there is it's a classic thing where people, it's the way you deal with pressure, right? So you either transfer pressure onto your players or you absorb it yourself. And when you're trying to control everything, that you think you're dealing with pressure and you think you're making things easier by controlling everything, but you're just transferring it down.
Well, mate, and then you, as a player, you feel like there's no trust.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, this is the funniest one when a coach turns around to you and says like, you know, I want your feedback or I want some feedback. So you give them some sort of feedback and then they either throw it completely out or they do the complete opposite. Like, well, what's just happened there?
This reminds me of my missus whenever she's like red or black dress. I'm like red. She walks out in the black, and I'm like, why did you ask me? Why did you ask me?
Just for confirmation.
Or am I a litmus test of what's bad? I think is the way. I think it makes me feel very bad about my taste.
Carnage.
Yeah, but no, you are right. I think when people ask for feedback, but some people, and I don't know if you've seen this with coaches, they've like read a book or something about coaching and they don't understand how you layer principles. So they see something in the book and go, I'll do that. It's completely out of line with the rest of their principles. So everyone's like, why are you doing that? And you know what growth mindset is? Stuff like,
not sure.
So basically you want to focus only on process and get people to improve. So Marcus is practicing his kicking. Well, for example, I was practicing my kicking once, right? I'm so bad at kicking. I just, for some reason, cannot do it. And you don't remember because I don't do it. You're trying to be nice, but no, I was awful. And I was practicing kicking with my coach, and he'd obviously read a book about it. Because he used to just shout at me all the time. Lovely guy, loved him. But and he's clearly read about growth mindset, which is all about when I get the kick wrong, I'm just going to focus and ask you questions on what you could do better.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how the outcome was. So first one happens, and he goes, "What could you do better there, Ross?" And I was like, well, I think I probably bought it. He was like, brilliant, let's do that. Next one.
Well, I know this coach.
Yeah.
I think I know exactly who it is.
You probably do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I could say the way he said it and you'd definitely get it. But
go on.
Anyway, because it was in my academy years. But I loved him, so I won't. But,
okay, maybe it's not.
It was London Irish. Okay. And then I spooned another kick.
Yeah.
And he goes, all right, what could you do better on that one? But the tone's changed already. And he's already so he's still doing it. Third one I spoon, and he's like, what could you do better on that one, Ross?
Oh, no.
And it's like, growth mindset isn't just what you say. It's everything. It's your body language is this. And, it's like you want to encourage a process-oriented environment. People take that as, okay, don't punish people for getting things wrong because then they won't want to get it wrong. But the other side of the coin is if you see someone do something spectacular, if you over-celebrate the outcome, everyone else sees that and goes, well, okay, that guy didn't pass the ball and ran it all in himself and you're cheering. So actually selfishness is rewarded. So that's the harder bit. Everyone can do a growth mindset with mistakes. It's doing it, not overreacting to success. It's the harder bit. And you see this, I don't know, you've seen coaches do this all the time.
100%.
They have their favourites, right?
Yeah, every coach.
And you know how to get in their good books. You need to do seriously well. And if you don't, but it is interesting. But sevens was, that's where I first saw you playing, I think. And that was where you had some of your best games, and it also led you to the Olympics. So talk me through the Olympics, because you actually came back for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so this was kind of another reason why, I mean, I think Ben Ryan would have probably done this as well, but I'd come into sevens as was an 18-year-old, maybe, or 19-year-old.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And my first tournament, I was 19. I forgot my boots, actually, going to the... Yeah, it was mental. Simon, when he first came in, we obviously had that meeting. And then he said to me, after a while, I'd played a whole season. I think quite early on, I'd said to him, I want to go back to 15s at some stage. And he also wanted the sevens program to be a bit like it was before. When you see your likes like your Danny Kerr and James Haskells and other boys.
Yeah, it used to be a big...
Yeah.
It was like a breeding ground,
exactly.
Right? And it's not anymore, is it?
No, not at all. It's like completely separate. And then like New Zealand and South Africa still do a bit of a model like that. It's actually changing completely now. But so that was kind of the idea. And Simon was on board with that, with me going back to 15s. So after I had one good season, I think we both kind of... I was ready to actually turn around to him and say, like, do you think it's a good time now? He actually said, sat me down and said, I think next season is a good time for you. But then straight away I was like, what about the Olympics? And he said, look, can't guarantee you anything, but you've been playing for 3 years now. You go play some 15s. If you play reasonably well, we'll invite you back to camp. Like you're still in the mix for the Olympics. You just obviously, you're like anybody else, you need to play well, but going back to 15s doesn't rule you out. And went to Newcastle, wasn't playing at the start because obviously I'd not played 15s for 3-4 years. Managed to get into the team and had a good sort of second half of the season, and then got invited back to that. And yeah, that was an experience, the training camp.
Yeah, what was I think everyone talks about sevens fitness. I remember my body would get so much more physically nervous before sevens than ever at the 15s. I don't know if it's this anticipation of pain or something.
That's it, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Definitely.
Did you like study this sort of stuff when you were in?
Yeah. And like you kind of, there's definitely something about it. Like it goes back to the first time I sort of knew what nerves really were was when I had a school sports day and I was really young, and I woke up in the morning, and my dad's like a big sports guy, like pushy in the right way, if that's a good way to say it. Like in terms, when I say pushy, supportive and pushy, and probably a perfect balance like we're talking about.
Sounds like you probably got it right.
Yeah.
Three of you, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And I woke up in the morning, he was like expecting me to win this 100-meter race, which in hindsight, I thought I'd win as well. But for some reason I woke up, I was 12, 11. I was so nervous. Or I thought I was ill. I thought I was physically ill. Yeah. So I was like, I remember being like the whole day, I was like, no, something's not right. So I think I got a hold of my parents and was like, I can't run this race. Like, I'm so sick. Yeah, I'm sick. As soon as the race finished and some like it gone, and I was like, what on earth was that?
Oh, so did you actually think you were ill?
Yeah, I thought I was ill.
Oh, right, you weren't faking. Like...
Well, I think I was subconsciously thought I was ill, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because afterwards I was like, what was that? I obviously wasn't ill. It might have even been for an 800-meter race, actually, sorry. And that's why I got back to the 7 situation, because I knew I was going to be in pain as well.
Yeah.
So a combination of like wanting to win and being in pain. And that feeling was the same sort of feeling you get before a 7s game.
And how... I've never played the 7s at the level you've played, of course. Only ever the JP Morgan or whatever it was. How hard is 7s at that top level physically?
So the first sevens game I played, I'd come off the bench a few times, which was perfect. So got like a bit of a feeling of what it was going to be like. And this was right at the end of a season. So I'd never played a full 14 minutes at that point. And I was kind of like, 7s was really fun. 19, traveling the world, like going on some nights out afterwards and stuff. It was really good. Enjoyed it. And then the next season came and I was like, would have been 20, knew the boys, and was settled. Coaches knew I was settled. I was training well. So I'm shoved straight in first game against Gold Coast. In Gold Coast against Scotland. And long story short, I played the full 14 minutes. And all I remember is I had a wet towel over my head afterwards. And I actually was like thinking, I cannot do this. I can't, like, if there's another 5 games to play and I'm absolutely fucked, like, I can't do this. And I was just thinking, this is brutal. And then after that, it was absolutely fine. Like, really? Yeah.
Your body just adapts and there you go.
Like, it was like, there's obviously some really brutal games. I remember we went to extra time against Fiji once in Wellington, and that was probably the most knackered I've ever been in my life. Really? I'd love to know what my heart rate was for that. But, yeah, you get accustomed to it, like anything.
And who was the best 7s player you ever played against?
So this is a twofold question, because what I like doing with this is someone that I liked watching and that I thought was a really good player was Cheslin Colby.
Yeah.
but he wasn't the hardest that I've faced, if that
Right.
makes sense, in terms of like we never were like up against each other. Those questions I always like to do is in who's caused me the most.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
Um,
Jez and Colby was easy. So
Yeah,
who's,
exactly. Yeah.
just follow him inside. Your man. Yeah, boys, come on.
There's two. A young Rico Ioane, 16. So, yeah, he was only 16. I would have been, 23, had a good season. Quietly very arrogant in terms of like this game because people were talking him up. And I was like, right, I think I got basically, Simon moved me to wing maybe to be opposite him. So I was like, right, I'm going to have to shoot. This guy's 16. Not a problem. I'm going to have to show him like, what the 7 circuit's about. And all I remember is him grabbing me in a ruck. I went out of a ruck to tackle him. He grabs me, throws me to the floor. I'm like doing some sort of 360 spin. He goes and scores. I look up and on the big screen and he just actually somersaulted me. And this guy's 16 years old. So I had some tough battles against him. And then the other one is a guy called Cornel Hendricks.
Yeah.
Played for the Bulls. Yeah, I just had some good battles against him. Like, I just enjoyed playing him. And I thought he was a good player. And then he actually got a few caps for South Africa, but I think he had some heart issues or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two.
Who was the best team?
When I first started playing, New Zealand had a bit of like a strange... They had a bit of an aura about them. I hate that word. I don't know why. But they had something where it was like, okay, it's New Zealand. Maybe it's from growing up, All Blacks that. So when I was young, it's like, okay, we're playing them. But they were big, physical. It was a different challenge against each team without avoiding the question. New Zealand were physical and ruthless. Fiji were just like magic. And South Africa were well drilled and very physical. I think so those would be the top 3 teams, I think. Over the course of the 3 years, I think the toughest team out of those would have probably been New Zealand the first couple of years and South Africa towards the end of my career.
Okay. Well, Fiji one of those teams where when they're on, that's it, really.
So they were the biggest team on the circuit, the least contact. So you kind of line up, the way Sevens works, you line up, the game's still going on because they try and make it as fast paced. So you line up in the stadium, game finishes and you run on. So you're basically parallel to each other. So you're kind of almost getting a bit of a feel of what the other team's like. You're standing next to them. You can, if someone's massive, you can kind of see them in your peripherals. And Fiji, they like sing their song next to you as well, which is cool. But like massive, but they just don't go into contact as much. But without jumping ahead, I don't know. But we played them in the final.
I was going to come on to the Olympic final, what that was like. So yeah, take me through that. The Olympic final, what was that like?
It was just one thing about, like you're saying with Fijian Magic, when I was like, today just might not be the day for us. One of the first things that happens, they throw a ball by 10 times out of 10, that ball goes into touch. It like bounced right next to the touchline. Somehow the ball doesn't go in touch. It bounces up 90 degrees straight into a Fijian hands and they score. And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
As soon as you get that little feeling as well.
Exactly.
Your body responding, this isn't for us.
That was it.
But what was that final like? This is in Rio, right?
Yeah. It was a bit of me, this is a strange thing to say. A little bit of me probably, I would have rather maybe got beaten the way that we did than if we lost by 2 or 3 points. Because we got beaten in the end by 40 odd points. So it was kind of like, right, they were untouchable. Whereas if it was 2-3 points, I felt like maybe there's something I could have done. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you didn't feel like you felt like there was all left out.
Yeah.
Like
It didn't feel like as if it was one of those things that a couple of moments would have changed it. They beat us convincingly, which in a strange way, in my head, makes it a bit easier. I don't know why.
But you won a silver medal at the Olympics. That's pretty cool. But you mentioned this before. How did it feel to win that medal?
So it was, the lead up to it was incredible because something that's, again, Simon did really well was that 12 that went out never played together before. So it was almost a bit like, okay, how are we going to work? He flipped that whole thing into, right, you guys have never played together before, but no one's played against you before. And I think that was a whole mindset change where everyone was like, okay, we've got an advantage here, which some people might see as a weakness because there's so much reviews. We could review each team. They couldn't review us. Just little things like that. But yeah, the Olympics was a very strange experience. It was amazing. But standing on the podium was so weird. I was kind of just looking at this medal thinking that this is massive. Like, it's something that I was watched as a boy, Olympics, being like an Olympic medal. How amazing is that? So I was kind of looking at it and just thinking, this is just like the thing that people work their whole lives for, and a lot of people don't end up getting it. And it was just weird. I was like, is this? It was a little moment where it's almost like, is that all it is?
Really?
Yeah.
There is a phenomenon called the Olympic blues, isn't there? That
Is there?
Athletes after the Olympics finish and they're just like, well,
yeah.
Is that it?
I can see that. I had a bit of an insight into it because I hope they don't mind me saying their names, but two of my old Sevens teammates, a guy called Dan Caprice and James Lightfoot Brown.
Yep.
We'd obviously worked to win some World Series tournaments before we won, and then Dan Caprice turned around to me as well once and said he'd done however many tournaments, lost in the finals. He won one, was so excited, and then had a massive crash. So he was like crying from happiness, and then later he started crying from being sad, which I was like, I remember being young thinking, what's that about? And I saw the exact same thing with James Lightfoot Brown. So I had a little bit of an idea of how that would work, which probably helped me because, to be honest, it was a strange time to think about that moment for me when I was looking at the medal. And it wasn't like an immediate thing. I don't know if I even ever really had that like drop, but maybe it's because I prepared for it in some sort of way. I'd kind of been like, But
you definitely felt it. It was a sort of, huh.
Yeah, it was almost a sense of a mixture of like a bit of relief, being like, nice, we've won something. And then kind of a bit like, okay, like I'm not going to go crazy about it. Like it's just, it is what it is. And that's it.
And what was the Olympic Village like? Was the whole Olympic experience quite cool or not?
Yeah, mate, the best way someone described it to me is human Jurassic Park. It literally is that. Like we walked in and there was the Aussie basketball team were the first people we saw, and they were massive, as you'd expect. 7 foot. They had I think they had 2 people at 7'2", so some absolute units, And then there was a GB gymnast who could like walk through your legs, so it was like
really,
it was mental. Yeah. But it was a crazy experience to just kind of sit back and think like this is meant to be. Essentially, this is the world's best athletes, supposedly. Obviously, it's not, but it's probably the one time where so many good athletes are in one spot. Yeah. Which was cool. And then even within that, you get your freaks because you get like there's an Olympic Village where you're supposed to feel safe, or for the people who are celebrities. So Usain Bolt's there at the lunch room, and he's getting mobbed by people wanting to take pictures of him, and he's probably thinking this is a safe space for me because there's not media or whatever. And it's just not like that for people like him.
So the other athletes were wanting to get photos with him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit,
Yeah, exactly. So he had to run out.
Did you get a photo?
No. He ran past me. On the other hand, though, mine and Juan de Jong's experience was very different because you know how many pictures that guy liked to take. And he went through his photo album, and like I don't know how many pictures that guy would have taken at the Olympics, but the only thing I look back on is thinking his kids have got so many photos to see of him at the Olympics.
He's like an official photographer
literally
of the Olympic Games.
Yeah, mental.
Yeah, he probably would get a lot, wouldn't he? But was it a very cool experience? Did you enjoy the whole thing?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. Because it's something that as a rugby player I didn't think was possible. But as a youngster, you'd always wanted to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I got to do that, which is cool. And very fortunate with the way that it was, being the next one was COVID, which if that was the one that I'd done, I'd be, to be honest, I would have been gutted.
Tokyo one,
it was an incredible experience, mate. And opening ceremony was mental as well. Just kind of in a queue waiting to go in, and you're in a stadium which we've been in with Sevens before, but then you're like, there's millions of people watching this, which is a weird concept, but it's cool.
No, that is cool. And so I'm assuming now you've retired. What does success now look like for you? Add some context for you. So obviously in rugby, it's quite clear what you're trying to achieve the entire time. It's all about playing well, getting a big contract, doing your thing. Like it's very clear what you're trying to achieve. As soon as that stops, there's the identity thing, but then it's like, what is success now for you?
Yeah, it's a strange concept. I think that there's it's something that you'll always try and look for success in different ways. And in different things. For me, I'm maybe going back to what I said about my potential being like, even if I was injury-free, I don't know if I'd ever think that I hit that. I don't think I ever will be like, I've hit success, if that makes sense. But that's okay. I quite like that because then there's something to kind of go for all the time.
Yeah.
So I quite like that weird continuum where it's like, you'll never quite get there, but or where you think you'll end up being. But along the ways, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you'll enjoy doing. And maybe it comes back to a little bit like what we said with people that have their one focus on hitting one goal. So as soon as they do, they're like, wow, is that it? If you know what I mean? Because you hit something. And for me, it's quite like clear. It's like, okay, that's great. It's now on to something else. It doesn't matter what that could be, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes a bit of a cliche, but the journey, not the destination. But I think that's definitely right. But has anything kind of replaced that? You get up in the morning and you've got this focus of, okay, I'm becoming, what are you trying to sort of become in that way then?
Yeah, so we're like the last 7 months, I've kind of moved country, retired, moved job, moved house, had my second daughter. So it's been pretty carnage. And I almost haven't had time to think about that, which has been a good thing because I've kind of just got on with it and just done it. So now I'm having a bit of chance to settle. So now it's kind of like I'm thinking like, now I can think what I can do, what I'd like to do. And just a little something that I've been doing, which I found really interesting, is I've kind of, because I'm not doing as much exercise as before, I was like, how can I get involved, be home as well and do that kind of stuff? So been waking up early in the morning, going for like runs, which has opened my eyes up to two things. One, how bad a long distance runner I am.
Yeah.
But also like, then that's a good thing because it gives me a chance to get better at it. And also, I always saw running as something like I'll get injured, all that kind of stuff. But it seems to have helped a lot of the soreness and injuries that I've had before. And when I get up and it's the first thing that I do, I don't get tired for the rest of the day, which is a weird concept for me because I'm like, I always thought if I did a long run, obviously there's, if you do a really long run, you're going to be knackered. But like, if I get up and I do like a 3 to 10K or something, I won't need as much coffee or feel like I need as much coffee. I won't be as tired.
Yeah, it's a natural hit. Isn't it?
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed that part of it, getting up, doing some running and then going to work. I'm doing a bit of coaching.
Oh, nice.
Initially, I didn't want to do that after rugby. I kind of wanted to put rugby aside for a little bit, which I think would have been a mistake. I think I would have then missed rugby, think that I missed rugby. But doing a bit of coaching, I've enjoyed it, and it's kept me kind of within rugby a little bit.
Yeah, so you were a bit similar to me, weren't you, in that by the time you finished playing rugby, you weren't necessarily enjoying being a pro player anymore? I
got to a point where I used to love playing games. I got to a point where I'd prefer training. I'd like training and come to a game and I'm like, oh.
Really?
Yeah, which was strange. And as soon as that happened, I was like, yeah, maybe this isn't it. And then just little things like, I'm by no means saying that I was the first one into the club and that kind of, nausea, like first one in, last one out. But I almost had to be in early to be able to do stuff, to be able to train well, or to a level that I was happy with. And it got to a point where I was getting in really early, doing those things for a long time. This actually happened for, I reckon, like 8 years, 7 years. 6, 7 years. Where I'd do that and I still wouldn't feel great. So I wouldn't actually train as well as I'd like. And I'm like, where did it just kind of going round in circles, being like, I need to get my body right. And then my body wasn't even, so it was frustrating.
You weren't even getting the bang for the buck.
Yeah,
anymore,
exactly. So it's frustrating. So not having to do that anymore is a bit of a relief.
That's that lack of control as well. You're like,
exactly.
Not getting progress, not getting control. In the running, you actually quite enjoy. Is it like a sort of meditative, this is my thing? Do you get up at the same time as well?
Yeah. It's a funny one at the moment. I'm like, so because got 2 daughters, so my eldest, I'll just do laps around like this little, like round the block.
Yeah.
And I've got a podcast in, and in the background I can hear the baby monitor.
Oh, really?
So it's literally like a case of like my alarm clock is my daughter waking up, so then I have to run back, get her up.
Yeah.
So like it's like a range where I could run 2K only, and then I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I have to go back up. Yeah. Or I could run a bit longer, but that's the process at the moment, and it will change.
Or you say you don't hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could work.
I don't hear it. I'm running.
That could work. That's what I should do.
You should do it. The missus it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm running. What are you doing? But it is funny because you don't, in rugby, you actually don't run.
No.
In a game, you might cover, was it like between 5 and 8K? Is it usually?
8 would be a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the longest time you ever run for was a Bronco test.
Yeah.
Which, like, of course, for me is like, 4:20, but for you, maybe 5-6 minutes. But
was that your best time, 4:20?
4:26.
Oh, right.
Ain't ain't nothing. Ain't nothing.
That's a good sign.
Well, that was kind of my game. I had periods where I got lots of gameplay, but I was always good at the fitness stuff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing any other business stuff. That's too much context to provide there, but the fitness stuff. But you don't run long, do you?
No, you don't.
And you try and go and do a 5K. Like, oh my goodness, this is hard.
Yeah. Just question on that, like any other business stuff. That's the side of sport that is maybe neglected a little bit. Is like just the fun side of it. There should be like a bit more of that.
Yeah.
And in a perfect scenario for a team, right? You have the coach trusts all the players, and the coach lets the players trust them enough that lets them kind of do that fun stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches that don't allow that sort of thing to happen, I feel like, are ones that, one, have no trust, and two, are so scared to lose that control.
But they also misunderstand what makes players play well. Like, in order to bring your best self that makes the right decisions on the pitch, you need to be feeling fairly happy as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And in order to feel happy and make those decisions, you need to do things that provide that.
Yeah.
And for context, any other business, something we used to do at WASP before, team meetings where we'd have a bit of a muck around about stuff that happened in the week and birthdays, this sort of thing, things that aren't essential but made a difference to people's moods and things like that. So
it goes with also the importance of having good teammates, or like, to make a good team, you need to have not the star players always that people talk about. You need to have those ones that are just good for the environment. And then on the flip side, I remember speaking to one of our coaches, Matt Everard, and my question to him, or maybe he even asked me, but it really got me thinking, was how do you create an environment in rugby? You get those people that don't get selected, or those squad members that are in and out that really sap people's energy. Like, so if they're not included, then it's, they'll tell everyone gets a bit down. And it's how can you try and make those people happy? And that's a question that I feel like needs to get answered somehow to make a team better.
And there's no really easy answer for
There's
it, but
not.
I think you're 100% right. It's a big challenge. I want to finish up with a few quick ones for you. Firstly, most useful book you've ever read?
Most useful. I don't know if you know if this was that useful, but I just really liked it. It was Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers.
Oh yeah.
I just really enjoyed that book. Maybe it shows where my kind of head's at, that I just quite like some facts and figures sometimes, and something like that to read. Or like a history of things that have happened in the past.
And finally, dinner party guests.
Yeah. How many? I can have as many.
3.
Okay.
And you.
Okay. Really rogue, but I'd want to sit down with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I think he's so interesting because he's like, when you think about some of the crazy characters in sport, he's probably number one, but like, he looks like he's been through it all. He looks like he's got that serious like fear in his eyes mixed with the aggression. Like,
there's something going on there.
Yeah. And now it looks like he just smokes weed all the time and is mad chilled. So I kind of want to figure out what's going on there.
I don't know, yeah.
And then for some comedy, I'd need like Ricky Gervais or Dave Chappelle. And then just maybe where I'm at now, I like listening to that Ross Edgley.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I really like listening to him because you listen to that bloke, and he's so like smiley and happy, and he's done some of the most insane things that you'd tell someone and it doesn't sound like that even happened.
Oh, he sounds, if you were just to look at him and you turned off what he was saying, he looks like he's talking about planning a wedding or something.
Yeah.
And he's talking about almost dying in a lake.
Mate,
he's so chipper. Most people like that feel like, you hear David Goggins.
That's exactly.
He sounds like he does insane things.
Yeah.
You hear Ross Edgley, you'd be like, you must work in like recruitment or something. Like, he's so happy and like, maybe not recruitment. Anyway.
But he's more like, you feel more aligned to him than you would of Dave Goggins, because I listen to Dave Goggins sometimes and I'm like, okay, you can't just fucking crack on with everything. Like, do you know what I mean? There's sometimes you've got
broken ankle. You probably should stop running.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes you probably give some bad advice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's not for me.
You can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
So he's a bit more personable, Ross Edgley, but he's done some mad things.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely. I think that's a good 3. So Ricky Gervais, Ross Edgley, and Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
that's a good 3.
Caught up between Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais, but we'll go with Ricky Gervais.
We have both in there.
Yeah, good.
Perfect.
Both.
Well, mate, we will finish it there. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on Ross Examination.
No, I've enjoyed it.
You've been examined.
Did I pass?
You did. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.
So there we have it, Marcus Watson. I want to thank you all for listening, and especially Marcus for rounding off the series with a real cracker. As I mentioned earlier, this is the last of this block before we take a short break and return in the middle of summer with some great surprises and some incredible guests. So if you haven't already, follow, save the pod, do whatever you need to do if you like what you hear and if you want to keep up to date with the podcast episodes moving forward. As always, if you made it this far, I really appreciate you taking the time and listening. It's a certain chunk out your day that I really appreciate you spending with me. So enjoy your summer and hopefully see you soon.